Hi, my name is John, and this is actually pretty weird talking into a camera. This is only the second video I've been in, and the first one that I've actually produced. I'm going to be talking about bows and bow wood and bow design, but first I want to tell a little story. There was once a little boy that was walking through the desert, and it was a really cold night prior to the day he was going for his walk. Well, he stumbled upon a rattlesnake that was caught out in the cold and could barely move. It was just really, really cold and frigid. Well, the little boy walked up to the snake and looked at him and kind of poked the stick at him. He wasn't too afraid because the snake could barely move. And the snake looked up to him and said, "Little boy, can you please pick me up and warm me with your body heat? If you do this, I'll be in your debt." And the little boy looked at the snake and said, "Why, no, Mr. Snake. I am not going to pick you up because you're a rattlesnake. You'll bite me." Well, the little boy, after being convinced that the snake would not bite him, did pick him up. And the little boy warmed the snake with his body heat. Pretty soon the snake started feeling alive again. And as soon he was able to, he snapped and bit the little boy. Well, the little boy threw the snake on the ground and in astonishment asked the snake, "Mr. Snake, why did you bite me? You promised you wouldn't. If I warmed you up, if I saved your life, you still bit me." And the snake looked up to him and hissed in a snaky way, "Yes, but I am a rattlesnake. It's in my nature." The reason I am telling you this story is that there is also a nature to wood. Each wood has its particular tensional strength, compression strength, and, to use a big word, modulus of elasticity. In order to build a successful bow, you have to work within the limits. You can't, say, take a Volkswagen Beetle and stuff a big black V8 into it and expect it to work well. It'll probably be fast, but it would probably handle really badly. Not a good idea. Maybe a silly analogy, but I just want to drive the point home. You have to work within the limits of each particular wood. I have an array of bows that I've made. I've probably sold, 300 different bows, a lot of different styles, a few things in museums, not to brag, but I guess when you're on YouTube you have to establish some form of street cred. I'm going to go through a series of bows that hopefully will give some explanation as far as materials and the specific characteristics of the wood, and also design. Now, starting from the right to the left, we're going from simple, more or less, to more complex. The first one I want to bring out, and this isn't strung, because I wanted to show you how I string a bow that's on the heavy side. I have a slip loop on one end. I also have a tied-on end on this end. And this is what I'm going to be working with. When I get it to a good brace, I can just use the slip-on end and then take that end and slide it back over, as I will show. But with a heavier bow, this is approximately 60 pounds at 29 inches. I want to maintain the 3 points of contact. I'm only putting pressure on the tips and dead center on the handle because I don't want to have my knee down here and overstress one of the limbs and just destroy the balance. This is a D-section bow, which simply means it looks like a D. If you look at the cross-section, it's flat on the back and it's round on the belly. This would take a minimal amount of woodworking because you're removing little bits of wood at each pass. It's not a big flat limb. The downside to this, the upside would be it doesn't require really a heavy tool pouch. You can use a flake from a rock, you can use a knife. I made this one just with a pocket knife because it's quick to make. You split, this is white ash, splits easily. Had it sitting around for a while seasoning, and then just worked it down with my knife. It's pretty because it's got a little snake in it, so it really shows like it's made from a natural tree stave. A little bit of doinks, but generally this was really straight. White ash is like that. Now the problem with white ash is that it is relatively weak in compression compared to its tension. And this is really, I would say, not a well-designed bow. It's good, It's heavy, casts an arrow, but it's going to get string follow just because there's a narrow strip running down the center of the belly of the bow. It is not by any means well distributed. Now you can get away with this with yew because yew is kind of an oddball wood. It's soft, which is odd, but you can make a bow with a D section, I mean the standard English long bow, war bow, with yew and not suffer the same problems you will with ash. Yew and ash have specific characteristics. They are very different on the spectrums of wood, but yet people feel that they can force a bow's design to fit wood with characteristics that don't work within that wood design. In this case, ash. It's a nice bow. I have to make it really long in order to work well at a decent draw length, but eventually if I shot this 500, 1,000 times, it's going to keep gaining string follow because the force of compression is centered in one thin strip. That's an issue with narrow, deep whitewood bows. It's not yew, doesn't work the same. Now I've got another bow that is also white ash, and it's the sister bow to this one. I say sister bow because it was made from the same tree. Now picture way back when, and I don't want to step on the toes of English longbow enthusiasts. I seem to like get kicked off of websites all the time, or forums rather, because of my arguments. Now I've got this nice round section white ash bow. How simple would it be to just make it wider and flatter in the belly and make the wood happy? That's all it takes with white ash. If you want to make a D bow, I guess I'm going to say a D in this, not referring to cross section, but the shape of a D, D for doggy. All I need to do is just flatten the belly and make it wider, and voila, I can make a very workable bow. This is 75 pounds at 30 inches. It's old, old, old. I probably made this about 8 years ago. It has a couple inches of string follow, but it's doing well because all I did was flatten the belly and make it wider. Simple. I'm not going to like say the bows of the Mary Rose were all very narrow and they were very deep and had a round cross section, therefore all English longbows would. If they were all made out of yew, yes, that would have worked. But they also had them out of white ash, oaks, elm, which are whitewoods which had different characteristics, therefore they must have been made a little flatter on the belly and a little wider. I do not make laminated bows. I'm not going to try to force a bow into this D cross section by laminating with Osage orange or using a hickory backing or ipe or any other woods that did not live in the United Kingdom at that point. I guess I should stop there before I get a lot of angry YouTube. Before I progress on this, so I want to apologize. I manage a nature preserve. And this is my fire circle area, the leafy teepee, the fire ring. I've got a stage over here, beautiful structure with rings on the top for the fire. But alas, this is summer season in northern Michigan, so there is going to be a bit of street noise. I'm kind of ditching work for a little bit just so I could do this. D-bows. And lest I get any comments regarding, I've got a hinge here. I don't have a hinge here. It was a gink in the tree. This thing actually has pretty good tellering. The next one up would be more of a standard longbow. It's pretty. It has a thick handle. It's narrow and it's asymmetrical. I have the handle at kind of a cant this way, just so the arrow is more center shot. I don't know what this is going to look like because I'm not on that side of the camera, but it's white ash. I made the limbs narrow and a little thicker. I think it's totally beautiful. I can't say that it's going to cast an arrow any faster, but it's just beautiful. But I made it. I've shot it quite a bit. Glued deer rawhide to the back. I'm a kind of more of a natural glue kind of guy. I don't go in for tight bond. This is either glue that I made from sinew scraps. If you sinew a lot of bows, at one point I was stripping 40 tendons a week just to keep up with my customers. I had bags and bags of sinew scraps, and instead of just returning them back to nature, I wound up just simmering them over very low heat so I don't break down the proteins, and making my own sinew glue. Probably as strong as hide glue that you'd buy. But I just like making my own stuff. Let's see, I could have put snakeskin on the back, but I just didn't. What else can I say about this bow? It's a little asymmetrical. The lower limb is stiffer a little bit, so it does show that it's not completely even. Normally I like bows that are symmetrical. When the lower limb gets a little bit, you know, more bent over time, they just naturally do, then I'll just rotate it and use it. I like symmetry. You're never going to see an arrow rest or an arrow shelf on any of my bows, because I've got one right there. It kind of reminds me, I was in the service, I was in artillery, I was in armor, I was a tanker, and also transportation. And interestingly enough, the artillery unit I was in was the only unit of those 3 branches that I was in that never issued earplugs. I walked up to a colonel one day and I asked him, why don't we get earplugs? And he goes, you got 10 of them. And that kind of goes along with my theory of arrow shells. Number 3. This is also a stave-made bow. And I was lucky enough to get a nice wide piece so I could follow one growth ring on the back. I am not even a follow one growth ring kind of guy. Now with Osage and mulberry and ironwood and such, you could take the bows and you could beat somebody to death with them or drop them on a rock. They're tough. Whitewood bows, the back's not so much. In the case of elm, it has interlocking grains, so it's a pretty tough thing. I actually like to do bias ring bows. You take your highly crowned stave, and you can make a bow this wide out of a tree. It's only this much in diameter. By taking the bow, or the stave, the stick, and scraping it down flat so you get parallel lines here, you can create a flat back, which is beautiful because with a flat back you can have a flat belly, almost a perfect rectangular section, and it distributes the stresses from compression and yeah, compression on this side, tension on this side, and compression on this side. Again, luckily I was able to find a big stave. I'm not going to dig the tip into the ground, I'm just going to do it my other way. Way up here, yeah! And this is a nice bow. Has a good tiller. As I am a professional videographer, hopefully this is going to be in this. And I'm not trying to impress with my targeting skills. I was having fun at 40 yards yesterday, but because I'm in my fire circle, it's not really set up for a target range. I just have a bag with some shredded bark in it just so you can see the tiller and hear the sound of the arrow hitting. Now the reason I am rushing this is I just finished a bow yesterday, a beautiful little black walnut bow for a friend of mine's granddaughter, and I wanted to make sure that, pileated woodpecker, I wanted to make sure that this bow was in it. They might come pick it up this afternoon, and that is the reason why I'm rushing this, talking with possible street noise and not really checking my angles. I need to show this. This is I saw a picture of an Oneida bow, one of the tribes within the Iroquois Federation, and they do some beautiful work as far as the detail on the belly. Again, this is black walnut, and it's nice because it has some sapwood there and the heartwood there. And with black walnut, I've seen some video questions on YouTube regarding sapwood and heartwood. Well, with most whitewoods, the sapwood and heartwood are pretty much the same. You're not going to see this U composite acting with the tensionally strong sapwood and the compressionally strong heartwood. They're pretty much even. There are exceptions, black locust, Osage mulberry, and red elm that I have found. You do need to work down to the heartwood because the sapwood is kind of crumbly crunchy. I might get some disagreement on red elm, but just out of practice, I like to work red elm down to the heartwood, a single growth ring. But anyway, I am going to take a chance, and hopefully you can see this detail. The belly of the bow, the side facing you, has just a rectangular handle. I did put like a little index thing for her finger because she's not experienced. Rectangular handle. Then it goes to these beautiful scallops, and I've seen some Oneida bows that'll have a scallop, a beveled surface, a scallop, a beveled surface, a scallop. It's more spread throughout the bow, but I really like this with scallop, 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 and then going to a bevel. And then on the tip, I made it look like an arrowhead. And then the bevel comes up and ends, and it's rectangular right there. Black walnut. And I do have a dink through one of the growth rings, a little flake, but black walnut holds together pretty well, and this is only a 25-pound bow at 21 inches, which is her draw weight, so I wasn't really too worried about it. I love this little thing. I'm going to make one out of maple. And doink! It's just a lovely little bow. Excuse me while I get my arrow. And I'm not Lars Anderson, so I'm not going to impress you with my speed shooting. Actually, when I've hunted, I'd only carry a couple arrows in, because if you miss on the first one, I don't know. And it's a nice little shooting bow for 25 pound. I'm going to be more careful with this one, though. Let's see, I'm going to set this over here on the bench. Now that I've hopefully established some street cred, people laugh when I say that, it's wooden bow, street cred. I want to go into like my favorite all-time design. My paddle bow. You may see some copies of my pattern on eBay. I mean, I've sold my pattern. This is a board bow. I make it according to a pattern. I have made them out of staves, if I'm lucky enough to find like a nice wide flat thing. But again, if it was bias ring, I cut down, decrown the stave. Doesn't matter. As you can see, and hopefully I can change some minds here about you have to have the back work down to a perfect growth ring or else it's just going to destroy. With this bow, 2.5 inches wide and very thin, you can see that, and just beautifully executed. Goes from the handle, which I like narrow handles, or not thick handles, what would you call that? Narrow. That'll work, because the brace height can be lower. If I had a handle that was 3 inches thick, the brace height would be higher, which would stress the bow more. This is a beautifully balanced bow that has the minimum, hello car, amount of material in it to work. In fact, when it's at full draw, you can feel just the slightest flexing in the handle, which is just so great. But anyway, it goes from a thickish handle, about 7/8 of an inch, thin, getting thicker, 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 and then it kind of peaks at the tips. Pin knocks. I love pin knocks because they are so easy. All you need to do is, whichever way you use, and then just slide it right off the top. You don't need to wrestle with grooves. There's no reason on a longer bow to have knocks that hug the string. I just use the pin knocks, boink, slide them off. For silencers, which seems kind of funny because I don't have a leather wrap on the handle, so you hear the arrow. But if I was going to be in the woods actually trying to get something, I would do a leather wrap on the handle, and it would be really, really quiet. So when I shoot my little paddle bow here, you're going to hear a as its arrow's going across here. But again, nice leather wrap will hear it. No shelf whatsoever because I like symmetry. I usually make them so when you measure it, laying on a bench, it's a 1/2 inch lower on one side than the other. That is my lower limb. And again, if it ever gets out of balance, and it won't, really, you just flip the top for the bottom. Now, one reason I like these paddle bows is that they're so beautifully designed, kind of following the pattern of a West Coast paddle bow, is that you could leave this thing strung for 3 days and it's not going to change the tiller. It's not going to affect the the arrow cast, you don't need to worry about ever decreasing draw weight drop. They're very intuitive. There was a competitive shooter that competitively shot compound bows that came down here once, wait for the car, and was watching me from the side, and these have more of an arc than a compound bow. And it was funny because I was hitting my mark at 30 to 40 yards, I just kind of walking back and forth, and he thought it was really interesting because he's like, geez, you're not even aiming. Well, it's as intuitive as throwing a baseball into a bucket. You have this natural feeling of like how high you should aim, how hard you should do. And the paddle bows give you that same feeling. Very intuitive. And so I love to make the longbows. I've made and sold horse bows that were the gull wing and then Cupid shape, and I like to do the West Coast. It's kind of, you know, if you saw a Modoc bow or Hoopa, it would have the tips bent up. I'll do that on a short horse bow, which is way out of character for that style, but it's pretty. If I wanted to just go shooting, I'd always grab a paddle bow. I love the consistency. I love the intuitive nature of it. They're just gorgeous bows, and I hope you can see. I could make it seem like I'm a lot further away. Listen. Nah, I was just joking with you. Pardon the death grip on the handle. There we go. So I don't torque the bow. They're just gorgeous bows. Well, I guess that's about it. There's the fire. Got some cattails hanging from there. I did a class on medicinal and herbal plants, so I dug up some cattails, some burdock. I've got an amazing array here at the preserve. But that's it, and thank you for watching. I look forward to all the YouTube comments.